The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are about to take you higher. Broadcasting from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to you listening around the world. This is Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa N Thomas. You can follow Tessa on our Facebook page at Spaced Out Radio, on Twitter at TessaTNT, and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for the archive.
But we break on command 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. Let the countdown begin.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time to go for a ride with host Tessa N Thomas.
I'm such a lucky guy.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, January 13th, Monday, January 14th for those of you on the East Coast and beyond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you guys had a rockin' weekend, an awesome day, and an even better evening. I am your host, Tessa TNT, and I am live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. We're also on 99.1 FM, WQEE, Newnan, Georgia, 107.7 FM, UPRN in Louisiana, Revolution Radio, and so many other places. Don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online, dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. So I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there tonight. Tonight we are joined by Miss Christina George. And Christina George is a paranormal investigator, ufologist, cryptozoologist, and a psychic medium. She is the founder of her paranormal group, P.P.R.S, which is Psychic and Paranormal Research Society, out of Sacramento, California, where they investigate not only the paranormal, but also UFOs, abductions, Bigfoot, and other unknown mysteries. Christina is the host of two well-known radio shows on UPRN Talk Radio Network called Paranormal Connections and Top Secret News, as well as she has also mentors children, teens, and adults with psychic abilities in order to help them understand what is going on around them and to help them understand that they are not crazy and that they are definitely not alone. Christina has been interviewed on hundreds of well-known radio and internet TV shows over the years, as well as she has had her work as well as her personal experiences published in numerous articles and a few books. Christina speaks at speaks and lectures all over the U.S. at events, conventions, and universities, speaking on topics of the paranormal, psychic abilities, haunted items, near-death experiences, black-eyed kids phenomenon, UFOs, abductions, and Bigfoot, just to name a few, so that she can inform the public on the truth about the paranormal world and beyond. Hey, Christina, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, at first I was going to, because my guest backed out, I was going to do mysteries and myths of the natives around the United States. But then I talked to Dave, and he helped me get you in here. And so I'm super excited and stoked to have you on tonight and to hear your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And a big shout out to Dave Scott. Dave and I are good friends and have lectured together and done our shows together, had some fun together. So, I appreciate him reaching out to me for when you needed a guest. And again, I'm looking forward to tonight. Anybody who knows me, follows me, has ever seen me lecture, knows that my whole life is full of supernatural, paranormal, ufology, everything above. I have more stories. I should write a book myself, but I just have too many things going on, and I can't sit still long enough to put it together. But we'll have fun talking about it.
Yeah, it really does take a certain amount of patience, and like you said, being able to sit still, and there's just too much to do to be able to do that. And some people are saying you can actually kind of record your thoughts and turn it into somebody, and they can write it for you. So perhaps you can go that venue. That way you do have your story eventually published instead of having to sit behind a computer and trying to type it all out and get it all out there. Because I know you have so much to share.
I do. And, I have been journaling since I was a teenager. I mean, there's so many stories that I had. It was really more of, which ones do I put in the book? Which ones do I not? Who do I include? Who do I not? It's just because they're just such touchy subjects still, even now, in my family and with certain, people who know me. So I've been working on it for 15 years. I have enough for a book. I've had multiple people who are well-known authors, Nick Redfern for one, David Weatherly, a lot of different authors and publishing companies have come to me, and they've said, look, if you write it up, send it to us, we'll edit everything and work with you. We'll put out the book. I started on that, and I don't know, I lost interest, I guess. And then after that, now, technology's so different. They were saying, well, look, you could just do a show on a bunch of the topics that of the experiences you've had, and then we can take that, and like you said, they can transcribe it and then write it into the book. So I don't know. I just feel like I've talked about myself for so many years and my experiences that would anybody really want to buy the book, but surprises me every time I talk about it because people are always asking me when it's coming out. So, I don't know, maybe by 2020 seems to be the year I'm going to make major changes and shifts.
That's a good even number, 2020.
That's right.
I would definitely buy your book, but I do want it autographed and a special note to myself.
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that. You're top of my list. It's always funny because I get people who listen to my show, and, they always said, I was doing a show one night, and they said, I started having people in my chat room, and they were saying, oh, I would love to get an autographed picture of you. Or if you get the book, an autographed copy of the book. Or when I send stuff, out for like giveaways and stuff, they always want me to sign it. And I always laugh because, to be honest, I'm just another of thousands of, radio show hosts out there. And I'm just like, why would anybody want my autograph? I mean, but I don't know. Hey, maybe in another 10 years, it'll be worth lots of money. Who knows?
You might even have your own show. You never know what's going to happen.
I'm not a big person. It's, for me, to be honest, I never really even wanted to be in the public eye, in radio. The funny story is I only got into radio because I had a friend who had created an online radio station. And so, although I had been lecturing and I had been in the paranormal field for a long time, he chose a lot of like the top people in the paranormal, ufology, cryptozoology, all these things. And we were all friends in the same circles. And so we all agreed to go help this person and do the radio show. So I had never done radio before, ever. Oh my gosh, it was the most terrifying thing I had ever done. People were telling me, I didn't need to be on radio, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, you could definitely tell I was a novice. And some people, the criticism would cause them to cave, buckle, and run away. Me, not so much. The more people, doubt me, the more it fuels me to want to show them or prove it. So I just really stuck with it. And then the radio network did so well that all of a sudden he decided he wanted to now charge us $100 a month per show to keep the show on the network. So we all revolted at the same time, and we all decided that we were going to quit. And we all quit on the same day. We all sent in our resignation letters, and we all moved on to other radio stations. And I always hated my voice. I always felt like I sounded like, some teenage girl. I still to this day, I hate listening back to my archive shows. Like if I've got crazy paranormal stuff going on in the background or EVPs coming through on the show like they always do, then I have to go back and listen to the archive. And my voice drives me crazy. But on the other flip side of it, the listeners love it. They're like, oh, I just love to listen to your voice and listen to your experiences, and it's just so great. And I'm just like, oh. I personally like hearing everybody else's stories, to be honest. I mean, but I think maybe that's what it is. When you talk about things like this all the time, it's like you're interested in what everybody else's experiences are. So I love what I do.
Yeah, it's funny because I did radio in junior high and different things like that, and I had never sought to be a radio personality because I do, from different experiences that I've had in my life, have social anxiety and things such as that, and I have my own paranormal group, Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and I was doing the page share on Facebook one day, and I found Spaced Out Radio, and I was like, Spaced Out Radio, I can relate because I'm spaced out. And so I decided to go in and listen to it one night, and Trip and Trixie, or Kat, were in there, and they're like, you're going to be hooked, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I don't listen to podcasts or internet radio or anything like that. I'm just checking it out for the night. But they were right. Like, I was totally hooked from the get-go, and listened every night, and I was just so enthralled with, all the information they were sharing and all the experiences in the chat room that everyone was having, and it kind of made me feel at home. So it was kind of like my paranormal family expanded. And then one day Dave came to me and was like, hey, would you like to do the Sunday show? And I was like, let me think about it for a day, because I do have that social anxiety, and like you said, I hate hearing my voice. But I've heard so many people say, oh, your voice is so relaxing and inviting and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I just really love doing what I'm doing right now and sharing the information with people and getting the word out there. It's just been a really awesome and epic experience, and I've learned so much from the people I've had on.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that especially for me, when I get people who call into the show or that private message me after the shows or after they've listened, and they can completely relate to some of the experiences I've had, or it makes them feel comfortable to come and share their experiences. Like I love having well-known guests and stuff on that people know in the fields. I love all that. I mean, they're great. But to be absolutely honest, if I could just do every show was just all about people's personal experiences, right away, that's what I would. I love those shows. And now the show's kind of evolved into all kinds of things. I don't know. It's really whatever I feel like during that time is what the topic is. So it's kind of great to have that kind of creative control over my own show, because I'm not really barred from any topics. I've talked about ghost sex and yeah, you name it. Like, there's really nothing I haven't. Sex robots. You never know what might come up on the show topic for the thing. But I absolutely enjoy loving hearing all of the people's experiences. Some of them are very, very funny. Some of them have been absolutely terrifying. But for me, it's always been very important for me, especially since when I first started in the paranormal, there wasn't a lot of interest in it. There weren't a lot of groups. And then once it hit television, like everybody and their friends, were like, wow, that seems kind of cool. Let's go do that. And now there's just so many people, so much craziness that goes on in the field, so many egos, so many different things. But it's interesting how interesting all of it is. And so again, I with you, I absolutely love what I do. I feel very blessed to be able not only to have a platform, but to have other platforms like this where I can come on and discuss things, because I think it's like really important, again, to also share that, yeah, the paranormal, it's great, but I don't feel like people take the field serious enough. And I have found out personally that it's not all fun and games. It's not just all mild human spirits that are harmless. There's some really bad stuff out there, and there's some really bad things that can come about, if you aren't careful. So I really kind of try to instill that, and as well as help kids with psychic abilities and their families. So that was always a big thing for me, since there was really no help when I was growing up.
For sure. And you were talking about how it was hard for you to come out to your family. Is your family or anyone in your family gifted as well with these abilities? And when did you first discover that you had them?
So since I was really small, around 4 years old, I've always been able to see spirits. But as a young child, I saw spirits of other young children, of adults, men, women, all different things. But they were never anything that was scary. Nothing seemed threatening. I mean, I'd never had like some kids have, like, they'll see things, in their room at night, and they're kind of terrorized at night, so they can't sleep. I've always had insomnia and couldn't sleep, but nothing that I saw as a child ever frightened or scared me. It really wasn't until I got to a teenager, and then it all kind of changed. But I was from a very strict Italian Catholic background. Okay, so I mean, so into the church that my dad's mother, like, literally would go to church. We'd go like 3 times a week, and on Sundays, either the priest, the Monsignor, or both would come to my grandmother's house for dinner. It was very common. So it was not looked real highly upon in the Catholic Church that here I was, this little green-eyed girl that was very inquisitive and had all these things going on. So I was trying to find out answers. And when you grow up Catholic, you're pretty much drilled into your head that, the priest knows everything, and they can solve anything, fix everything, forgive you for anything. So I felt like that's the best. If my parents can't tell, my mom couldn't tell me, or my grandparents couldn't tell me, then, maybe it was my priest that could tell me. And they were more upset with me at the fact that I was even asking these kinds of questions. And he was always just kind of like, stop talking about this, stop asking about this. So it wasn't really anything I could talk about to anybody, to be absolutely honest. So it was kind of hard growing up and trying to make friends. And I was one of these really strange girls, because I am very, very social. I love people. I can get along with anybody. I'm like a chameleon. You can put me in any situation and I can blend in and do just fine. But nobody could really figure me out, because like, I was a cheerleader. I was like in a little gang for a while. I hung out at the cemetery and like meditated. But like everybody knew. So nobody really knew who this girl was. And although I like people, and since I have psychic abilities, I'm also a very, very strong empath. So I really can't be around a whole lot of people for a very long period of time. So, I loved, being around people, but I didn't do like a whole lot of things outside of, school. I just went there and then came back. And again, for my family, it was something that you did not talk about. And I'm 51. So, back then, even even discussing something like anything that had to do with paranormal or occult or anything was very taboo and had some, pretty bad ramifications if you brought it out. As a young adult, I did eventually end up meeting other people that had abilities, but I also saw that a lot of those women that I knew got married. Their husbands knew, obviously, right, that they had psychic abilities. It wasn't like they hid it. All these different things. Everything went good for a while until things weren't good anymore. And then they ended up going to divorce court to fight over custody of their kids. And I saw it happen over and over again, where the ex-husbands would come and their attorney would say, my kids don't need to be with her. She's crazy. She, says she can see spirits, and they talk to her and they give her, messages. Some of them would think that they would say they're witches, all these different things. Now you think we're not back in, Salem anymore, where they have the, witch burnings and stuff, but there's still a whole lot of, at that time, it's still a whole lot of really negative thoughts when it came to, psychics. Psychics were, in my age, were like Miss Cleo and like Dionne Warwick's psychic hotline. So it was like, and crystal ball tarot card readers that were all like scamming people out of money. Every time you went to them, they tell you got demons and you got to pay them all this money, and it was just always, it seemed like a scam. So you definitely did not want to be classified as a quote unquote psychic, or quote unquote to have any psychic abilities, because it was really looked down upon. And to be absolutely honest, it's kind of funny how over all the years I had to really hide who I was, because I could make friends very, very easily. And then when I got to be friends with them for long enough and I trusted them, and how like when you have friends, like then you start telling them all your little secrets and things you don't want to tell everybody else. And as soon as I would trust somebody that, okay, they just like me for me, and I can tell them that I've got these abilities and the stuff that goes on around me, and, they'll accept it, and I'll finally have friends that accepted me as the real me, because I kind of felt like I lived two lives. One life was me in the social arena and how I had to blend in with it, be like everybody else. And then there was the real Christina that was a whole different life. So it was kind of, strange having to have, like, to live a dual life like that, having all this. And then it was so crazy that, sorry, when I got into the paranormal field, actually in the public eye, was about 15 years ago. And at that time, it was still very taboo. Paranormal had came out, the paranormal television shows, so a lot of people were into it. But if you said that you had a psychic on your team, or you were using a psychic on your team, then immediately your team would be discredited. And they would think that you're out to scam your clients and the public. It wasn't until Dead Files came out where they started on the paranormal investigations actually using a psychic medium. And then we saw like Long Island, medium, all these different psychic medium shows come out. And I'll tell you, it was like a light switch, like in the paranormal. It was like one day everybody was bashing anybody that, was public about being a psychic medium. I was so out there that, that's, as you see from my group name, it was Psychic and Paranormal, Research Society, because I had a whole bunch of sensitives and people with psychic abilities in my group. I thought it was great. I have skeptics. I've got a little bit of everybody on my team. So I thought it'd be, a really good thing to do. But as soon as the television show came out and you could see how a psychic medium could actually be able to help in getting, you can't really even call it evidence, but, seeing what they can pick up and what can be validated. And when you could get that validation, how much it helped in cases. So it was like overnight. Like I literally, I've known people, I've been on social media for a very, very long time. I think 2006 is when I first got on or whatever. But as long as I've been on, I've always been somebody who's just, I'm out there and I'm in the field and I'm just, kind of on top of everything. And I just was like, oh, well, if you don't like me, too bad, don't care. And then the show came out and then I literally started seeing all these people's profile names changing. So it went from like Mary Jones to now Psychic Medium Mary Jones. And then all of a sudden, all the teams that bashed me or people who had psychics on their team now were flipping the switch and they were looking to use their own psychics, or I was being called to kind of be contracted in to, help them with cases, different things like that. So I'll tell you, over the field, it has been a very difficult and long run, and I've seen a lot of changes in the field over the years. It's definitely been interesting, but I'll tell you, the increase in activity in cases, as well as a lot more negative cases, have popped up since the paranormal got so popular. I stay busy all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're talking about how you have to trust somebody to tell them your stories. I grew up with a mother, which I lost at 5, almost 6 years old, to a drunk driver, but she was the spiritual part of my world, and she was able to see spirits and communicate with them, and she'd go and smoke in the cemetery and share different thought processes and stories with them and communicate with them, and
I love that.
And then I lost her, and so I lost that kind of spiritual outlet for myself, and but I felt like it was normal, because in my world it was, but then
right.
I didn't get to go to kindergarten, so I skipped kindergarten, went to first grade, and I tried to make different friends, and like you were saying, I was the odd girl out. Like, I was just weird compared to other people, and I'd go and tell my stories to people, and that'd make me even more odd to them, and to me it felt normal, but it really wasn't to other people. They're like, wow, this girl is crazy. So then I learned to make friends, know that I could trust them before I shared my stories, and then, they either kept me as a friend or they didn't, because they're either like, this girl is baddish crazy, or they, encompassed it or had accepted it.
Usually my friends, even if they accepted it, like they would think it was cool, and they would go home and tell their parents. And their parents would say, you better not ever talk to that girl again. And that would be the end of that friendship. Like, oh, my parents don't want me to talk to you anymore. So, I mean, it was interesting growing up. And I think that is so amazing that, you had somebody in your life, especially your mom, that was very open about all of this. So it wasn't something that seemed unnatural or strange to you. Now, I mean, again, when you go outside of that arena and you try to talk to other people and you realize, oh, shoot, they're not having these kinds of experiences. They're not seeing this kind of stuff. So it is a little different. So again, you kind of want to find that group that fits in, that don't think that you're that weird. So I totally get it. And at least that kind of guides you, because again, you didn't have it from the very beginning that, oh, it's not true. It's not true. It's true. Now that's what makes you feel crazy. Like having from a very young child, having things go on that I can't explain, I don't understand, and I can't get any answers. That's tough. That's tough. It's like learning, on your own. It's like somebody throwing you into the deep end of the pool and, you sink or swim. You have to figure it out. Like nobody's there. I had nobody there to help me. And interestingly enough, you asked if there's anybody in my family. I come from 9 children. Okay, so I am the second oldest. And it is funny because, again, it's not something that was spoken about a lot. And I actually didn't grow up with my dad. My dad and mom got divorced, and then he moved on and got married again, had more kids and things like that. And I ended up finding out that the psychic abilities came from my father's side. And there's a long family history of things like that, and lots of connections there as well. But even a lot of my sisters, although I will say that a lot of my sisters, they've had like private conversations with me, over the years since I've been so public about everything. And they've admitted to me that they all actually have had some kind of experience with paranormal activity or paranormal experiences, but they just don't want to, they're not comfortable like stepping out on that limb and saying that, oh, I actually believe in spirits and ghosts and things like that. They're just like, oh, I knew when something was going to happen before. Oh, when I'm around somebody, I absolutely can feel, if they're angry, or something that's going to happen to them. It's all different. But I mean, again, it's always interesting because as much as everybody would tell me, oh, you don't have any abilities. That's not true. That's all made up and nobody has them. And then people start realizing, that they have their own experiences. They just don't pay attention to it because I've asked people before, have you ever walked into a room or met somebody and immediately the energy is just different? Like you've never spoken to this person before, but just the vibe of them, it just just rubs you the wrong way. You just know that they're probably not somebody that you want to be around, right? Or you just, you feel something about somebody and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. I get that all the time. And I said, okay, well, what is that? And they'll say, oh, well, that's my gut instinct. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you think that gut instinct is? So as I start to explain, different things, sensitives, what it is to be empathic, the different types of psychic abilities, the different types of psychics, because not every psychic has the same abilities or the same things going on with them. And again, people start, wow, I didn't realize. And now again, that there's just so much about the paranormal and psychic abilities, just so much information out there. I think that people are now starting to feel a little bit, I guess, more open to sharing their stories because now there are a lot of like radio shows and paranormal groups and paranormal, groups on, social media that they can join and support groups and just any kind of thing that you possibly could think of is out there. But it's also kind of a downfall because before my age, it was lack of any information. Now there's just so much information and it's not even factual information that's always out there. I mean, people can put anything out on the internet and it doesn't mean they know a thing about what they're talking about. But just because somebody reads it, they'll, believe it's true. So again, the paranormal field is evolving and it's very interesting to kind of watch it over the past 15 years. It's definitely has an interesting twist to it for sure.
Yeah, it has definitely grown by leaps and bounds, and people are more accepting of it. But like you're saying, back in the day when we were growing up, it was just taboo. And right. So I refer to it as the paranormal closet. I stayed in the paranormal closet until about 2012 when, I had my newborn son and I'm holding him in my arms, and this friend of my daughter's came down. He had moved away to Colorado Springs and came down for a visit, which he didn't want to go on, but the court ordered that he go and see his father for Thanksgiving. And then he disappeared, supposedly. So that brought me out of the paranormal closet, because immediately my husband's like, this kid is dead. And I'm like, don't say that, because I want to think the best. I want to think that this kid is okay. He's just, kind of hid out somewhere. And because his father had done that before, he's hid his kids out. But, he actually did take his own son's life and took him apart and spread him out throughout Middle Mountain. And sorry, my kids are jumping on the bed out there.
It's okay.
But that brought me out of the paranormal closet. I didn't care what people thought anymore, which that was a fear of being judged and ridiculed and people saying you're crazy, and which happens a lot in this realm.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, I don't care anymore. I want to help this mother to find her child, and I want to bring her peace and comfort and some sort of knowing of what's going on. And so that's when I formed my group. And at that point, I knew, there's so many people out there that need our help, and there's really not a lot of outlets for things like this. And we don't charge, of course. We always do our stuff for free. But it was just something that did bring me out of the paranormal closet. And I'm so grateful for it, because it has been such a wonderful process. And it's cool how these things have come out on television as far as these shows. And people are grasping it and excited about it and more accepting than they were before. But at the same time, it's kind of burning people out, because there's one show after the other that comes out. And people are like, wow, another paranormal show? Which I watch them all. I love it. I'll watch scary videos to go to sleep.
I can watch the scary videos. I just cannot watch the paranormal television shows. I mean, first of all, so many of them, or the majority of them that are out there now, are scripted. I mean, it's like reality TV. It's, claim it's reality, but it's scripted for, to get viewers. So, and for most people who are paranormal investigators, when you watch these shows, for me, I personally sit there and yell at them and talk about it. Like, what in the world are you doing? Like, every time I see somebody provoking and feeling that they've got to provoke in order to interact with what's there, it just absolutely drives me crazy. I've said it before. I've had people come on my show and they're like, oh yeah, we have to provoke because we got to get them riled up so they'll interact. And I just thought, how reckless that is of you. Like, first of all, that's not the case, because I've never, ever in my whole life had to provoke a spirit or even an entity to get it to interact with me. Now, provoking it can definitely cause a reaction, and it definitely might not be the reaction that you are. See, I mean, that's the thing is that, again, people from watching these TV shows think that everything that they're interacting with is demonic. And that's absolutely not the case. In fact, the true demonic cases, if you want, to be honest, I don't really even know if I believe in like demonic demons and all of that, but just some very dark entities. So we will go with that. It can be very dangerous, being an investigator. And, not knowing what you're doing is bad enough. But I always make a joke, they keep me, all the new investigators keep me in business with my group, because I get more, maybe you do too. This is a good question for you. But I will tell you, over the last 15 years, I have gotten, over the years, more paranormal investigators that become my client than just actual random clients. Like, I'm getting all these investigators that, are investigating, they're not protecting, they're, using Ouija boards, they're summonings, they're doing all these different things.
Oh, geez.
And then they're going home and they're, taking these things home, and, they're not afraid of what they bring home, but then it torments like their family and their kids. And it really bothers me, the television shows. And, actually have known and been on some of, the filmings of some of the shows that are out there, and seeing how much of the stuff that they put out there that is faked. And so for me, it's kind of like a slap in the face, because for me, this is an entertainment. I'm not worried about, any of that. I'm not worried about being on a television show. I'm not worried about being a superstar. I'm not wanting to be a Paris celebrity. I'm not wanting to be any of that. I feel like you have to, in order to do that, you put out a fake idea of what our field is about. People who are now getting into the field are using these television shows as training tools. I've got more teams that I brought on my show, and I said, so, how'd you get into the paranormal? And they're saying, oh, yeah, I started watching whatever show on television, and I thought it was cool. So me and my friends got together. We got a Facebook page, put together a team name, and there we go. And, that's great. We do need investigators and researchers in this field. That is 100%. I have always said that. What I don't agree with is, again, the practices that are happening, how people are learning. And then what they're doing is they're going out to locations and they're saying, oh, okay, this is cool. But, going to locations after a while gets boring, right? So they're like, oh, we want a live actual case. We want a client. So then they go out and they promote themselves and they say that they've got all this experience and they've got demonologists on there. They can guarantee they can get rid of anything and promise you the world, and don't have a clue what they're doing. And then it ends up making the situation for the client 10 times worse. And anybody who's ever had a very, very serious attachment, a serious haunting, where you're really tormented, your family's tormented. It takes a lot to actually get the strength to reach out to get help. And when you reach out to a paranormal team, you're expecting, or people expect that just because they're in the paranormal, that they're experts in the paranormal and getting rid of stuff like this. And again, that's absolutely not true, because there's no experts in this field whatsoever. So, and anybody who claims that they are, I just laugh in their face. I don't care. I mean, paranormal's been my whole life. I'm still learning things. There is no experts. So, I think that it without training with, a reputable team that knows what they're doing, I just don't believe that random teams should be taking on cases when they really don't know what they're doing. And let me restate that. My thing is if say that there's something where it's a severe case, instead of a team saying, hey, you know what? I think this, I definitely think you've got something going on, but this is out of my league right here. But let me reach out to somebody and get some help so we can get you the right thing. Because it's like, you don't want to go in there and start stirring everything up and then you leave, but the family still has to live with what's going on. And now it's like the spirits are wanting to get retribution on the family for reaching out to get help. So, like I said, I kind of have a real problem with the whole paranormal television show aspect and what it's doing to this field.
There are a lot of teams out there that are on the shows that are respectful, but we're talking about ZB and his group, and he does provoke and he does different things just to try to get the ratings and such, and to me that is so disrespectful, and I don't like to see or hear about that, because that's not the way you do it. And like you said, these families have to deal with this in the aftermath of what you're doing in their house, and to go in and disrespect a spirit, like, to me, you got to treat the spirit as you would anybody in your life. You know, we're all going to be spirits someday, and why are you going to go out there and disrespect this person just to try to get a rise? If you do it correctly and you're respectful, you'll get things coming out in the end anyhow, you know? And so we use the utmost respect when we go out, and we realize that what we're doing, we're leaving behind for our clients, and we try to be respectful of not only the clients but the spirits in the house, whether they be good or bad. Sometimes we've come across some that we're just like, we got to get rid of this thing, but we don't disrespect them at all. We don't provoke them. We don't name call. We don't do these other things. We feel and realize what they actually are. And I find in these times, you know, more and more people are coming out with gifts. Like, not only am I gifted, but my kids are gifted. And I think that's because of our bloodline. But I think more and more people are gifted these days. And that is something that has been read in the book, as far as in the end times, more and more people are going to come out with gifts. I have an aunt in Boston, Arkansas, and I was so excited to tell her about what I'm doing with the paranormal investigation and helping these people with their ghosts or other things that are going on there. And I do use protection. I wear my cross. I wear my St. Michael medallion, which I'm not Catholic, but I have so much faith in him, and I know that he is good and the awesome things that he can do, and I call upon him quite often. But I think it's all in your faith and
absolutely.
And you don't have to be a certain religion to have faith in something. You can have faith in it anyways. But she's like, what makes you think God's going to protect you when you're doing what he don't want you to do? Well, God obviously gave me this gift for a reason. And to me, the real sin would be putting this gift up on a shelf and saying, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Obviously, he gave me this gift for a reason, and I need to work on it and build upon it and help other people around me. Because, like I said, there's not a lot of people out there that can help other people with these things.
100%. You know, and I mean, again, it's always been very interesting to me of how it kind of plays out. I mean, we want people there, but I just want people to be smart. I've investigated with people. I've interviewed, people who have teams or investigate places all over, and a lot of them don't do any kind of protection at all. And again, it's just, I just shake my head, and they say, well, I've been doing this for the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I've never had anything attack me. And I'll say, you know what? You're lucky. You're lucky, because
indeed,
I used to be that same person. I used to think that, I'm strong. I can see what I'm dealing with. I can control my abilities. I can do all this. I don't need, per se, to do my protection, or I'd be so busy doing things before we started that I'd forget, and I suffered some really bad consequences because of it. So I will tell you, it's just like with a skeptic. When a skeptic comes to me and they either don't believe in psychic abilities, or they don't believe in the paranormal or anything like that, or I'll get other people and they'll say, well, how do you feel about skeptics and people who don't believe in what you do or believe in the abilities? Like, what do you do to try to convince them? And I said, nothing. Why? Why would I? I mean, that's like trying to convince an atheist that, Jesus is real. I mean, it's not going to happen. And it really takes, like in the paranormal, it takes your own personal experience. And when you have that personal experience, it's life-changing. Like it changes people forever. I absolutely love to not only have skeptics on my team, but also invite skeptics to go along with us when we're investigating locations. I never take anybody with us other than our team when we do private cases, but I do a lot of locations and stuff. And I absolutely love it because I go out there and they just get to experience it for themselves. And when you can just see the change when they have their own personal experience, and something that, because they know that they're not crazy. They probably think, most of them think we are. And so I get a lot that think, okay, I'm going to go out and nothing's going to happen. And boom, I can prove that this is all fraudulent, filled. And, then something like really major happens that they experience. And even if it doesn't change them completely, it makes them rethink what they just experienced over and over. Because again, they already have convinced themselves they're not crazy. So if they're not crazy, how in the world did they just have this experience? So it kind of really opens people up to the field. I mean, it's not my job to convince anybody of anything. I used to try. I always felt like I had to prove my point or, make people believers. But over the years, it's just like, it's a never ending, turnstile. I mean, once you get one non-believer, there'll be another one. I mean, somebody can like you one day and then you can put a post out on social media and it can be an opinion that somebody else doesn't agree with. And then they'll be your biggest hater. You can have friends with multiple people in the field, and then two people of all the group of friends might have a falling out. And then everybody wants you to take a side, and show your loyalty to somebody's side. I don't do all that. I didn't do that crap in high school. I don't do the cliques. I don't kiss people's butts. I think that's why I like doing my own thing because I don't have to do anything like that. I can just go out there and help people, put out the information, as I see it and based on my experiences and how, if somebody needs my help, I'm more than happy to do that. I help actually a lot of groups across the country that I work remotely with. I actually fly out and do investigations with teams. I love to get out and check out different parts of the other states, as long as there's no alligators or sharks involved. I'm pretty down to go anywhere. Oh, you think I'm joking?
I think you're serious, but I'm laughing because I can feel where you're coming from. Seriously.
Well, people say, how can you live with ghosts and spirits and the paranormal all the time, and then be scared of the sharks and alligators? I said, well, it's like the same thing with people. I'm not scared of the dead people. I'm afraid of the live people. There's something right. I got to be worried about. And I don't want to be shark bait. I don't want to be eaten by an alligator. I just kind of feel like they have their own territories. It's not my place to go and try to, encroach on their homes and push them out of their environment. So I'm good to just stay where I am. I'll stay with the little earthquakes in California and stay far enough from the beach that the tsunami doesn't get me.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier about paranormal investigators needing help. I actually haven't come across that here because we're in Colorado, and there are some paranormal teams, but we haven't had anybody from a paranormal team contact us. It's generally families and, a person in a family that's like, I'm seeing and experiencing all these things, but nobody else is. Am I crazy? And I'm like, no, not everybody has this gift. Not everybody can see or experience these things because, there's religion, there's certain denials and closing that window where people can't really experience it. But some people are so open that they do. And that's one of our goals is, to help people know you're not bat-ish crazy. You're actually experiencing this, and let's come in and investigate and make sure it's not just your house settling or your pipes creaking or whatever else is going on. And generally we'll find something. We've had actually only about one case where the person was experiencing things, but it was from her past torment that she had had through her life of being abandoned, being in group homes, and being bullied, in school and in her later years at work by people still. And, and, she had this certain power about her that these things were growing or showing themselves through the pain that she was feeling. And it was not attacking.
They create their own poltergeists. That's what ends up happening, and they don't realize like that they have all the control of taking the power away from all of that because they're creating them. But they got to kind of deal with what they're dealing with.
Yeah, and this thing was like not attacking her ever, but attacking her husband. And at one point, it ripped him off the couch and had assaulted him several times, and it's because of the things that she was feeling and going through and manifesting, like you said, as a poltergeist. And even though she was an adult, she still had that mind frame of a teenager, because she was somewhat mentally handicapped. She had that mind frame of a younger person, but she was feeling and doing these things and not realizing that it was her. And we did the cleansing, we did different things in and around her house to stop what was going on, but we also gave her the advice, you need to go see a counselor, which she had never done, because she, coming from a Christian background, felt like, I'll give it to God and it'll all be okay, but that doesn't help everything. You need to help yourself, because God's not going to fix everything for you. You have to help yourself when you can. And she's like, oh no, I don't have a problem. Well, you do. Like all these things you've gone through, all these traumas that you've experienced and still experiencing, you need to go see a psychologist to have some sort of outlet. And so then it was just showing itself in her life and wreaking havoc upon her husband. And she's like, what do I do to help this? And we tell her, and then she doesn't want to listen to our advice. And so it continues.
Yeah. I mean, I had a client at one point that I worked with them, actually a little over a year before they finally, started doing everything that we advised them to do. Once they did all that and we came and, did the cleansing, we got, rid of it. But, again, I think that when you say you don't have, that there's only a few paranormal groups. I know some that are out there, or some paranormal investigators and some teams out there myself. But I'm in Northern California, and, 15 years ago when I really started investigating in the public eye, there was only like 3 or 4 different paranormal groups in California, period, from Southern California to Northern California. And that's, about a good 8 to 10 hours apart from each other. And so we really didn't have anybody to bounce things off or get advice from or bring help in or anything like that. And I used to always say, man, I just wish like there were more people that were interested in this, so that like we could work with other teams and we could, do things together, and like we could like make friendships with other people in the field so that like we could hang out. Because again, it's like we were all, these little groups of us in our groups were all alike. So it's nice to have groups of people that are like you. So I was like, that's definitely a good thing. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. On that note, I actually have to go to the first break. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
Hey, guess what? You can now get your brand new Spaced Out Radio swag at spacedoutradio.com. We've brought the store back with all new items for you to pick out and pick up for yourself, your family, or friends. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, we got it all. All you have to do is head to our website and click on Store. Choose what you want and it's shipped to you. The Spaced Out Radio store is right there for you. Come shop with us at spacedoutradio.com. Then we can own the night together.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com. If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You can follow Tessa on Twitter at TessaTNT, on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, back to Spaced Out Weekend host, Tessa Nicole Thomas.
Hear the sound again, voices dancing in my head, smile wide, drowning slowly as the air goes round.
Hey guys, welcome back and thanks so much for joining us this evening. I'm joined by Christina George, and she's amazing. Welcome back, Christina. It's so great to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you. Got my drink all cleaned up and ready to go.
Dang, Pepsi flying off.
Yeah. Wasn't even paranormal. I'd like to blame it on it, but no, it was just me.
Yeah.
Knocked it over.
I know, it's funny, when I was growing up and until I hit the age of 18, I had this really clumsy streak, and I'd reach for my drink and spill it. I'd do so many different clumsy things. I'd fall up the stairs, and at the age of 18, it finally ended, but then it came back. I think I was like 39 or 40. 40s when it came back, and I'm like, wow, the clumsy streak is back. What the heck is happening? I thought I was rid of this.
Well, I have a thing called Final Destination luck. I don't just have bad luck. Like, I have like something like right out of the movies. So it's always like, as soon as I saw Final Destination, that movie, I was like, oh my God, that's like my life. So that's why, like, I have these fears. Like, to be absolutely honest, I think like in another life, I was probably eaten by like some megalodon or great white shark or something, because I just have this crazy fear. I've never even gone on a cruise because I feel like with my luck, it would probably go down like the Titanic, or like I'd somehow like fall off the deck. Nobody would realize I'd fallen off the boat, and I would then be like deep blue sea. And just these are the kind, that's the way my brain thinks. So my own network is, the station is actually located in New Orleans, right? And they
Nice.
try to get me out there for everything. And anybody who knows anything about New Orleans, one of the most haunted areas you can go to. So like, it's like, has always been on my bucket list, but it's always been at the very, very bottom, because they've got lots of alligators there. So, and I don't do alligators.
And voodoo.
And well, I'm not even really all that scared about that, because now over all these years, like I've done shows like on voodoo, hoodoo, all kinds of strange black magic voodoo dolls. Like I've learned a lot over the years. I'm telling you, you can learn a lot just interviewing people. So I'm not really afraid of any of that. I'm actually very intrigued and want to go. The only thing that keeps me back is the actual alligators and the fear of being eaten. And everybody, the owner of the network said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we only got gators out here about 3-4 feet long. They're more scared of us than we are of them. And I was like, yeah, whatever, right? A 4-foot alligator.
Yeah, that's what they always say.
He said, oh no, you're too little. You'd be like appetizer. You're like a toothpick. They wouldn't even be interested. And I said, no, Final Destination luck, I'd be the one that it would like jump up. Like I have no interest in going and watching any kind of like alligator wrestling or on a swamp tour. Like none of that. So yeah, I stayed away. I did tell myself this year that I was going to conquer my fears. And not only was I going to go to Louisiana this year, but I'm also going to, for the first time ever, try to go do some investigating out in Florida. And my little sister is going to absolutely hate me, because my little sister has lived in Florida the majority of her adult life, and I never once went to Florida. That sounds so horrible. I never went to go and see her in Florida. Like, I could video chat, I could call her, whatever, but I never went to go visit her. She had to come to California. And now when I'm finally going to go to Florida, she's moved to like Ohio or something. So, but yeah, I'm going to try. Now, that does not mean that, I'm going to do it, but that's the thought. plan at this point. We'll see how it goes.
Well, so long as you try, she'll know that in your heart you are trying and trying to be there for her. You know? But I haven't been to New Orleans either, even when I lived in Arkansas and Tennessee. Like, I'm so close, and like you said, it's been on my bucket list, but something's been keeping me from doing it. So when you go, let me know. I have friends down there, so we can shack up there and investigate and protect each other from the alligators.
that would be awesome. See, but then my problem is, like, okay, so anybody who like ever follows me too, they know that like I love to investigate, but I love when I get together like and go places. I love to go and have me some tequila, and so I can't be drinking and investigating, right? So I gotta like choose one or the other, and usually the alcohol wins. So I have to like really plan it. So maybe I do need to like bring somebody with me so that like they can keep me on schedule. But we'll just plan a night. Ask Dave. Like I'm the tequila queen and the party queen. So you know. But again, paranormal it's like it surrounds you. So it's like I have to be careful too, because my butt ends up saying, "Oh yeah, okay, well, sure, why not? We should go investigate." I'm like breaking every rule I tell anybody. But again, that's what happens when you drink and then you think. You have like really strange ideas that sound good at the moment, but are probably not the best idea.
Yeah, I've done that. And tequila is my favorite. My favorite is Hornitos. Jose is not tequila. Jose is just evil. Like, we used to be friends, but we're not friends anymore. But Hornitos is so good, especially the Hornitos Silver. I don't like the brownish colored tequila. I like the clear colored tequila because it doesn't give you that residual hangover and all that other stuff. But yeah, we'll plan a day where we'll have our drink off, and then next couple days or whatever, we'll go out safely, because I do the same thing. We've had or done, National Ghost Hunting Day and stuff like that, where we invite outsiders in. And this last time we had a lady that showed up and she was just reeking of alcohol, and we're like, hey, that's one of our rules. You can't drink and come investigate, because then you're compromised. And that's one of the things I learned. Not because I was compromised due to alcohol, but when I have an investigation and I know it's coming up the next day, as you have always been a night owl, I've always had this sleep deprivation going on, and my bedtime is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I can't go to sleep. And so I went on one case to help this lady right up the road. Her house ended up being in the very backyard of a Catholic church. And generally when I pull up on a place, I'll feel what's going on. I'll feel whether it's negative or positive or, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel threatened at all. And I went in, showed her how to cleanse her house and get in every nook and cranny, like open these drawers under the bed. You got to waft the smoke everywhere. And, I didn't protect myself before. I didn't protect myself at the very end. And then that night, I had my cross on. I didn't have my St. Michael pendant at that point, but I had my tourmaline in my pocket, which was one of my big sources of protection for me that I had faith in. And took it off, put my pajamas on, and about 30 minutes later, this entity was so pissed off at me, it took over my body. And that was the first possession that I remember ever having. And not only did my voice change, but my facial features changed, and I was saying all these hateful, terrible things, and I broke my $1,700 camera. I wake up behind the steering wheel of my car, and I'm wearing no clothes at all, and I'm just like, where am I going? What's going on? I gotta go home right now. I gotta go back home right now. And so I go back home. My husband and my kids are locked in the master bedroom, and I'm like, okay, this is obviously for a reason. So I put my pajamas on, I lay down, and I watch TV to go to sleep. And the next day, instead of my husband coming out and being pissed off at me, he was genuinely concerned. Are you okay? Like, I know that wasn't you. I could tell by the facial features in your voice and things that were being said. And I was like, I don't remember any of it, but I can see the effects around me, like the chaos that I caused, like throwing coffee down the hallway and breaking my camera, which I still haven't fixed yet. But yeah, that was pretty scary, and it taught me a lesson not to go out when I'm compromised. And I have a really good group of diverse people, and I trust them so much. I send them out on these cases. If I am compromised, I'll stay home because I know not only can that affect or harm me, it can affect and harm the people we're trying to help.
100%. And it's funny that you said that because I had a similar experience recently. So again, normally I only drink like I do like my team Christmas party and things like that. So of course I'm the hostess with the mostest. So I'm the life of the party. So it's always a thing with me. We're always going to have some tequila involved if I'm around on a party. But when I'm investigating. So I never mix or I never try to mix the two. But I had a situation last year, and it was last winter. I had went up to Virginia City, Nevada, and it's an old ghost town. The place is like crazy haunted, like the whole place. Like you just go through like one part, like one main street of the town, and like it's got like all the old saloons and stuff. I've never seen so many saloons in my life because it's pretty much all the way up and down both sides of the street. But this old Western ghost town. And so I was going up there. My friends were taking me. Oh, yes, it was the Springs. My friend was taking me up there for my birthday. And she had told me she had invited one of her girlfriends. And she says, oh, yeah, she owns a business out up there in Virginia City. And supposedly it's haunted. And I said, oh, cool. And she said, so maybe while we're up there, we can go and investigate. Well, I personally, since it was my birthday, I really, even as haunted as it was, I wanted to spend the first 2 days that I was there just partying and having a blast, right? And then I said the other 2 days I was there, I would investigate. So we get there on the Thursday, we've driven, there was like snow everywhere, it was just crazy. We finally get up there, and so everybody needed a drink. So we all started drinking shots, and my cousin, he runs the Washoe Club out there. But I didn't know that until I went up there. So I was going up there to see him for the first time in like 15, 20 years. And so I get there, and everywhere we went, like every 3 doors, it's another bar. So we were going in there, and everybody was buying me more shots for my birthday. And her girlfriend, the business owner, she was drinking with me, and like all of a sudden she says, hey, come here, why don't you come over here with me for a minute? So I walk over with her, and she said, hey, my business is right across the street. I'd love, to come and walk you over there and show it to you, see what you get. Now, again, when you're drinking, you don't think clearly, so that's why you should not be drinking if you're going to investigate. And I had no plans on investigating. But again, it being in a drunk state, I said, sure, why not, right? What could happen? So I walk over, and we go through these big steel doors, and then we have to go up a staircase to go into the apartment on the top floor. And immediately as we walk through this door, it's a whole apartment up there, really nice apartment. You could tell it had been like renovated. And I walk in, and I see this man standing in the apartment, and I saw him so clearly, like I could see you and I. The only thing that gave it away was that he was transparent. I could literally see through him, but he was you could see the form of him very well. I could see all of his features, everything. So much so that it kind of startled me, because I was like, oh, what are you doing here? And so she says, oh, so do you pick up on anything? And I said, yeah, there's a guy here. And she's like, oh, now I have to go back just a little bit, because first of all, there's always the situation that whenever one of my friends in the paranormal introduces me to one of their friends and they say that I'm a psychic, I always get this same weird stare. Like the little one eyebrow goes up like, psychic, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. You just another one of these scammers. So, that's kind of like how it was. So I think when she told her that she's psychic, she was had told my friend, oh, well, if she's a psychic, we should bring her over, to her business and see what I picked up on. And she's like, but don't tell her anything about anything. And I don't ever like to know about anywhere that I'm going to go. And again, I had no plans on going to this business in the middle of the night on a night we were celebrating my birthday. But I ended up going in there. The guy's there. And as soon as I say that this guy's there, she says, what does he look like? And I explain, and her jaw kind of drops, right? And like, I'm looking at him like, okay, you need to tell me something, right? She's freaking out. And mind you, I had just met this woman maybe 5 hours prior. All right. She does not know me from Adam. I don't know her. We just met together. We drove up in the car together and we started drinking together when we got there. That was it. And then she pulled me aside. Let's go over across the street. And I went with her. So she looks and her jaw kind of drops. So I'm looking at this guy and I'm kind of like, okay, you got to give me something. And he immediately just ran for me, just rushed me. And the next thing I know, girl, I never in my life have ever had a spirit enter me. Ever. I've had them go through me. I've had them try to enter me, but it's never happened. But this time it did. And I definitely, because I was compromised, I 100% know that was the reason, because it had never, ever happened before, even when I'd been tried to be jumped. But before I knew it, just in a flash, all of a sudden, I can hear myself. I can see everything. I can see what this lady is saying back to me and talking to me. I can see everything in the room. But what I am saying is not what I'm thinking, and it's definitely not what I'm wanting to say. And I start hearing myself say, this is me. You know who I am. And she's looking at me crazy, right? Because, just imagine the scenario, right? You don't know this woman. All of a sudden, she starts, explaining this guy who is there. And she doesn't, and I don't know any of this. And then here I just start, in this random voice, start telling her all this information. And all of a sudden, what I was saying, I kept hearing myself say, oh, I can't cross over until you forgive me. I can't cross over until you forgive me. And I'm looking at her and her eyes well up with tears. And in my brain, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm watching this like a movie. I'm like, are you kidding me? Christina, what are you saying? Shut up, shut up. You don't even know this woman. And all of a sudden she turned her face away, right? Because she was tearing up. And out of nowhere, I grabbed this woman by her chin, by her face. And I twisted her head, and aggressively. And I grabbed her face and I said, you need to listen to me, and you need to listen to me now. If you don't believe this is me, this is the proof. And only you'll know. And I reached back and there was some table or desk or coffee table. There was some kind of table right behind me. And I just my arm just went back and I just grabbed this box off of this table they had. It was a closed box. I took it, I put it in her hand. And as soon as I did that, again, in my brain, as soon as I grab this woman's face, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she is going to punch me. And I don't even have any
what am I
control
doing?
over my body. Yeah. And I don't have any control over myself or what I'm saying or what I'm doing. So it's I couldn't even fight back. I couldn't even protect myself. I'd have just got knocked out, right? So my brain is thinking this as my mouth is saying all this other stuff and I'm doing all this other. And I was just it was such a horrible experience to be that out of control, of what I was saying and doing. And I never experienced that before. And all of a sudden she just she took the box and looked at it and she just burst into tears and she's like, we gotta go. And she just ran out of the apartment. And I just then all of a sudden I felt okay, I can take some control again. So I basically turn around and I go running after her. She locks the building. We go across the street, and we both head straight to the bar and have a couple more shots. And we did not speak about it again that whole night. We wake up in the morning, and all I can think of is, wow, obviously, could I have drank that much where this is all just was a figment of my imagination, but I didn't even have a hangover. So it definitely wasn't that. So I felt very apprehensive and almost kind of ashamed when, her friend came out that morning, because I didn't know, like, how do you spark up a conversation after a situation like that, right? And so, right. And now she's spoken to me since it happened. So we get to the kitchen table and we're eating breakfast. And I just said, I just really want to apologize. And she was just like, yeah, we need to talk. And so she starts saying that I just really freaked her out from the beginning. Because first of all, I come to find out that her and her ex-husband had purchased this building, right? It's an old saloon.
Wow.
And they had purchased this building when they were married, and they started to renovate it, to bring it back and start to put it back in business. And as soon as they started renovating this place, they started having all kinds of strange paranormal activity going on.
Yeah, it kicks up so much activity.
100%, yes. But of course, they weren't in the paranormal, so they didn't know anything. They were just people, that had some money that decided to, it's a beautiful place. They had the opportunity to buy it. They were going to do it, live there and, basically retire there and have a business. And so this kind of stuff started happening. Now, again, for anybody who knows anything about, Virginia City, I mean, the whole town is haunted. So the fact that there was anything paranormal going on didn't really surprise anybody. But they started renovating down in the basement. And as they started doing that, the activity ramped up. I mean, big time. And something started affecting her husband. And he started changing dramatically. Becoming very depressed, suicidal, all these strange things. And the activity was getting worse. Then they were digging and they found some, what is believed to be human bones buried in the basement. There was also a bag of some money that was found, and a red dye pack had exploded all over it, but it had been buried anyway, right? So they find that, they turned it into the local, sheriff there, and he said, well, that they could keep it. It wasn't any good. It had everything. So they didn't really know when it happened or anything. So all this stuff starts happening. So she was talking to some of the other locals, and they said, well, Virginia City is well known for being haunted. So she reached out to some paranormal investigators around the town. And a few of them came and did some EVP sessions and different things. And they were actually getting quite a bit of interaction. And whatever was coming through started coming through with almost sentences, and saying that they were after her husband and that they wanted to kill him. And before you know, the story goes on, and the marriage gets more strained, and the activity is getting stronger. The stronger they're getting, the more the couple's fighting. Eventually, he ends up cheating on her. She finds out and says, I'm done, wipes her hands, files for divorce, and moves away, moves back to California. They went through their divorce, and in the divorce, they had split, the belongings, and they were supposed to sell the location and split it, or one of them would buy the other one out, or whatever they were going to do. So she had made arrangements to go up there and get her part of the belongings. And so she called, and she couldn't get a hold of him, and called. And she did this for a couple weeks. And she said, it just wasn't like him, even though they weren't really getting along, to not at least call back. So she ended up calling over to the sheriff and asked the sheriff to go to the location and to do a wellness check. And when they got there, it was all locked up. So they eventually forced their way in. And when they got into the building, they found her ex-husband dead in the building, and he had been dead for a few weeks. So he dies
Holy
in the building.
shnikes.
Yeah. So he dies in the building, and I, again, didn't know any of this, but I actually described him to a T. Now, she said that the way that I was, when she saw the shift in me and the change in me, and when I was talking, I was saying things that only she would know between him and her, which is what was really freaking her out. And she said, but when you reached back and you grabbed that box, she said, Christina, we had just walked in there. You didn't even have a chance to walk around the apartment to even look at anything. She said, you grabbed that, and she said, you had no idea what was in that box. She says, but I did. And it was the last gift she had given her husband, which was an anniversary gift right before they ended up getting their divorce. So she knew it was him, but she was so freaked out of the fact that not only did I connect with him, but he came through that way, that I just really freaked her out. Freaked her out so badly that she said, look, you can go back tomorrow night to do the investigation. I mean, on Sunday night and do the investigation, but I'm not going. I'm not going back in there, period, until we figure out what's going on. Now, then she starts showing me at that point some pictures that they have gotten, over the year or two at the location down in the basement. And I'll tell you, I mean, it's just crazy the amount of apparitions you could visually see in this basement, sitting on these stairs that go from the basement that used to go up to the main level of the street. But I guess over the years, they switched out the wall or whatever. So those staircases now just go to a brick wall. So there's nothing in there. So I saw a lot of the evidence and things. But again, I'm one of those people that, like, you can show me anything. Like, I want to go and see for myself. I want to see what I pick up on. I want to see what I get and, go from there. So for that next day, I didn't drink at all. I mean, I was really kind of still kind of, my head was spinning from the whole situation because, again, I'd never experienced anything like that. And so I was like, oh my God, the fact I was drinking, it was able to enter me. I said, I never investigate. That's my cardinal rule. I said, everybody was drinking the next day that I was with, but they weren't all none of them were investigating with us. So I just walked around with them and drank soda roll. They drank all day. And then when it came time to go to the investigation, I go over and I was myself and there were 3 other people. One of them had been drinking. The other 2 were completely sober. So it's a snowy day. We get down there. It's freezing cold. As soon as we go in the door and we start to go to the main level, there's this big, gigantic warehouse of all this, like, taxidermy stuff, like full-size lions and bears and just, it was like walking into the jungle or the zoo, and then you put a spotlight and it's just like, right there. So that was scary, more scary than I felt like anything else was in there. So they're like, no, we got to still go down to the basement. So we walk down to the basement, and immediately, I don't know what it is about basements, portals, the energy that you feel in them, but as soon as I walked down the flight of the stairs into the basement, all of the energy changed. And it was a dark, dark energy for sure. And I didn't know what it was. Like, it wasn't a human because it wasn't coming out. I couldn't figure out, what was going on. And all of a sudden, everybody's setting up the equipment and the cameras and everything. And I look over and I see 2 little girls. And they're under this stairway they were, I guess, rebuilding or working on. And I see them under the stairwell. And they're taking their fingers and telling me, like waving me to come here. And so I look, and so I go and I walk under there, and they sit down right underneath the staircase, and I sat down as well. And I'm trying to like interact with these two little girls to see what's going on and why they're here and their story and everything. And basically they had told me that, you know, they were born there and they died there, you know, and that their mothers died there. And I didn't really understand any of it. And I said, you know, do you need help? Do you need to cross over? And they said that they wanted to, but they couldn't, that the bad man would not let them leave. And I said, what bad man? And they point over to the corner of this basement. And now in the middle, they're setting up all the equipment. And to the back on the left side, there's this huge, and I don't even want to say like a black mist. I always have said, if you had like a black piece of like silk cloth, and you like kind of like put it in the air and like waved it up and down, you know, it's just kind of very flowy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that. And as they pointed at it, I looked and it floated, you know, over, and I'm kind of like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden it starts to come over. And the next thing I know, it comes straight at me, straight over me. And boom, just like that. I'm sitting there and I can hear everything going around me, but I cannot move a muscle. I'm just sitting there cross-legged, you know, like Indian style, just staring at the staircase. So I'm sitting there like forever, it seemed. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, oh my God, is like somebody going to come and check on me? Like, where the hell is everybody? Why aren't they checking on me? Because, you know, but I didn't know them really. So I'm sitting there, and the little girls, they leave from out of there and they run into this other little area, covered area. And so I can't move. So I'm just sitting there. And all of a sudden I hear somebody say, hey, anybody know where Christina's at? So I can see that they're looking with the flashlight and they're looking around. And all of a sudden they put the flashlight right on me. And I'm like, yes, they're going to come over and they're going to help me. No, not so much. They looked and they're like, oh, there she is. And one of them says, oh, well, you know that she's a psychic medium. Leave her alone. Maybe she's trying to get into her like trance or whatever she does, right? Because none of them knew me. And so they just left me and like continued, started the investigation, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And again, I can't move. I'm hearing them go through it. I'm like just really mad. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I cannot believe, like, I never investigate with people who I don't know. Like, I was like breaking every rule that I've ever put out for myself or for other people. So eventually, all of a sudden, I just stand up and I go and I'm able to walk, and I walk over and I see this lady and she's standing there. And as I walk over there, you know, she's trying to like tell me things, and I'm like, I have no control whatsoever. And next thing I know, they're all gone, and I'm just standing there, like looking at like something out of The Grudge. Like, I've got long, you know, dark hair, and I'm just standing there. One of the guys that was with us looks over to see where I'm at, and he sees that I'm no longer under the stairs. I'm now standing, like, looking at a blank wall. And what does he do? He takes a picture of me. So I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, right? And it was interesting because when we first got in there, I had actually sat down on the stairs, those same stairs I told you about the picture was in, and I had a really bad headache, and it like hit me as soon as I got down there, and everybody kept saying, are you okay? And I said, man, I just feel like somebody's like literally beating me up. Like, you have no idea. Like, I feel like I'm just getting blow by blow to my head. It's horrible. Like, it didn't start till I got down here. And one of them had their camera going, and he turns around, he goes, oh my God, look at this. And on there, and I'm not a big orb person, but on the video camera, you literally could see these very bright orbs literally dive bombing and going into my head over and over. And every time it would do it, I'd say, oh man, it was there again. So they got that on video. So there was already weird things. They were getting all kinds of evidence. I was hearing it all go on and everything. They were talking. I just couldn't do anything. So they snapped the picture, and eventually, okay, I'm able to get a little bit of control again, but I feel really weak, like to be able to take that control back. So I go and I sit on the stairs. Now again, nobody knows that this is going on. Nobody's coming to check on me. They end up coming, and again, now I'm like completely frozen again. I'm sitting there, it's freezing, I'm sitting there on the steps, and they all come up, and they like literally just pass me and keep walking up the stairs, and left me on the stairs in the basement. So eventually, again, I'm able to get enough energy where I can kind of get myself together. I get up the stairs to the main floor. They wanted to go in and investigate the apartment. I got to the main floor. They wanted to go up the stairs to go to the apartment. I was like, I'm good. I'm done. So they finally were like, okay, let's go. And it really literally took me until I got out of the building and crossed the street before the hold really broke. And I was so freaked out. We got so much evidence that night, but again, it's the first time I've ever actually encountered something where I literally was possessed, and it just shows you, I thought that the reason it happened to me the first time was because I had been drinking, which was probably made it very easy. But even though the next day I hadn't been drinking whatsoever, I did my protection, I did everything I always do, it was still able to take over me. So again, it's when you experience something like that, it changes you. It freaks you out. I've had a few experiences over the years that have, caused me to have reactions like that. What's left behind, especially when you go through a situation like this, or you get some type of attachment, is like I started feeling myself depressed, suicidal. I was trying to call my radio station and tell them that I wanted to, resign. I called my team and I tried to have a team meeting and say, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't be out there teaching people, and like this kind of stuff is happening to me, because at the time I felt like, how in the world can I help people if I can't even help myself? But as I was able to kind of break a lot of this stuff and help with other people, these things kind of make you stronger. And again, I think that's why I really am always really pushing about how serious you need to take the paranormal. You may do this for years and never have not one bad thing happen, but it can be one time that something happens that it'll change your life forever in a different direction. So, it can be scary, I'll tell you.
It definitely can, but like you're saying, it can make you stronger, but at the same time, sometimes these things want you to think, I shouldn't do this anymore, because they don't want you to help. They don't want you to interfere with what they're doing. So they want you to doubt yourself. And, that puts that into action where you're like, I'm going to quit this, I'm going to quit that, but don't ever quit. Don't ever listen to what they're trying to tell you, because that's what they want, is for you to quit and for you not to help people anymore, because then they can take advantage and do what they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, when you're in that situation, you really have no control over your emotions. That was what was crazy, but the good thing is that the people around me, again, this is why it's so important to have people around you that like really know you and when you're going through things like this, because when I was saying all this thing, like the network owner, right away, he was like, what are you talking about? This isn't you. Like,
right.
Whatever. I'm not letting you quit. You talk to me tomorrow, right? And my team was like, absolutely not. What are you talking about? This isn't anything you would say. Like, who are you right now? And then, I ended up getting some help with it and everything. And eventually, as the attachment kind of was able to detach, then I kind of came back to myself and I was like, wow, like that's crazy. But again, you have situations like that, and there's never any assurance, even if you are the best at protecting yourself. I mean, I was in Oregon 2 years ago for an event at a location that had never been investigated before. I went there and ended up this similar situation. They had everything upstairs, there was activity. It was all human spirits. Went down in the damn basement, and the basement had something really dark down there, and it made it very clear to me that it did not want me there. And I ended up, it was part of the investigation, and I ended up doing it against my better judgment. And in front of about between 10 and 13 people, I ended up, after that investigation in the basement, as I was trying to go upstairs, we all literally, everybody that was there saw a black mass fly down the stairway. Literally, I felt it hit me in the chest. The next thing I know, I woke up, I had passed out. And I thought that, whatever this thing was, like, tried to either enter me or go through me, and it caused me to pass out. So I had no idea what happened. And so the people around me, they were like freaked out. So they just let me believe that. And 2 days later, I had them on the show to talk about the investigation, what happened, how the event went. And live in the middle of my show, I'm telling this story from, I've skipped over a whole bunch of it, but I'm telling this whole story, and I get to the part of the basement, and I say this thing flew down and it hit me in the chest and it knocked me out. And they're like, well, yeah, not really. And I'm like, what do you mean not really? Like, that's what we agreed upon happened when I left. Like,
right.
That must have been the reason. So what are you doing now? Like, I'm really think like I'm being punked on my show or something. I'm like, what do you mean? You're making me look like I'm a liar. And he said, well, yeah, the majority of what you're saying is true, but we didn't really tell you anything the night that happened because we were so concerned about your health. But you didn't just get knocked out. It said, we literally saw the black thing come down the stairs, and it said it literally grabbed you by your chest, levitated you about 2 feet off the floor, and threw you 3 feet across the floor where you hit the concrete floor and was knocked out. Now, I learned this live on my radio show. And again, I still had a lot of the residual. When I drove back, I had a 15-hour drive to get back to California, and I didn't talk the whole way. It took,
lot of inner,
days.
Inner thinking and going over things and what happened, and over and over and over in your mind, trying to figure out what exactly this thing was. And it doesn't really leave a lot of space for talking to people, and people are like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just thinking. But yeah, it's kind of like a different sort or form of PTSD, where you're just going over and over and over in your mind. What happened? How could this have happened? How could this thing take me over? And it's just insane.
Yeah, and again, when, you're in the public eye and, you're helping other people and things like that, it was really making me question, was like, this what I was supposed to be doing? But the other flip side of it, I absolutely know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't know for a very long time until about 17 years ago, I had a very, very bad car accident, and I had a near-death experience. And during that experience, I was told that, I had to come back. And long story short, he told me that I was very quiet about my abilities. As a young adult, I did end up meeting some people, but it was, again, I picked and choose who I would say anything to. And after the near-death experiences, my abilities were 100 times stronger.
Yeah, that's what I was
And,
going to ask.
you know,
Did you find anything amplified? Did you have new gifts? But it does. It amplifies your gifts you have, and sometimes you can be a mathematician when you weren't before, or an epic musician. Like, these near-death experiences are kind of crazy, and it makes me wonder, is another spirit kind of tagging along, or are more spirits, like, helping you with your gift? Like, what exactly is happening there?
well, yeah, and for me, so as a teenager, I got an attachment, and the only way I found to kind of combat that when it kind of started tormenting me, I found a book in the library that was on witchcraft, on spells. And I found a spell that it was for a binding of abilities spell. And so I felt like, okay. I mean, I didn't know anything, and there was no help. So like I would have tried anything, I think. So I figured, okay, well, how hard can it be, right? You just do the spell, you just follow like a recipe, right? That's what I thought. So I did it, and it wasn't like the movies, like it wasn't like no poof of smoke and something changed or anything. I did it, and it was like, oh, it was kind of like a dud. Like, I wonder if it works. Like, how am I going to know? And eventually I started realizing like I wasn't really getting any contact with any spirits whatsoever. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. And over the years, I would see things here and there, but they weren't interacting with me. I didn't see anything scary. Nothing bad was happening. So I just kind of went with it. But as soon as I had my near-death experience, I will tell you my abilities were back and, even stronger than ever. Before, I've always been a strong empath, but I mean, it was like off the charts. Like I couldn't, after that, I definitely could not go to like a mall, to events or any large crowds were hard for me because I literally could feel everybody's emotions. If they had a fight earlier, if they're in a good mood, a bad mood, it feels like you're like a bipolar or like you got, multiple personalities. It's like you're just being hit with so many different things. I didn't like it. I also, since I was a teenager, I've gotten a lot of precog dreams, and they were always about natural disasters that were going to happen, things like that. I never really understood why, again, was given this information. Like, what do you do with it, right? I mean, it's not like I can go save the world or I can stop a earthquake or a volcano. So I never really understood, what I was supposed to do with it. Never really understood up until recently, even where I was getting the information. I mean, this is how, naive I was. People asked me, where are you getting the information? And I said, well, I guess it's my guides, right? Because people always say if you're a psychic, you got these spirit guides. Well, I figured that's who was giving me the information. And, I just went with that over the years. Those came back and were stronger than ever. And as time has gone on over the last 15 years, they've really, over time, changed and as well as gotten stronger. I'm getting the information a lot quicker and a lot more accurate. I started probably 4 or 5 years ago. I first started telling my team, when I would have them, because they would be very sporadic, maybe every couple of months. Once every 6 months, I would always tell my team, and then before you know it, anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months, it would happen. These things would happen. And so my team said, oh, you need to start posting that on social media so that you've got it posted somewhere. So if anybody ever says that, you're lying, you can prove that you put it out before it happened. So I did. And a lot of people, I think we're very skeptical at the very beginning, and then they started seeing the things transpire just as I was saying, and then people were very fascinated, and then the more accurate they got, they started to change a little bit, and it wasn't just showing me natural disasters. It was showing me man-made disasters, weather modification, false flags, terrorist attacks, you name it, I was being shown it. And when I started putting all of those out and they started happening, like the P.P.R.S shooting, the Southern California shooting, the one in Colorado, all of these different ones that I had put stuff out before they happened, there was a change I noticed, and it started freaking people out, and they started getting scared. And that was the last thing I wanted, to do. And during my near-death experience, they told me it wasn't my time and that I was supposed to now go back. It was now my time to be open about my abilities and to use them to help other people, right? Now, mind you, I was always very, very private about this. I never wanted anybody to know, and I sure as hell didn't want anybody to categorize me as a quote-unquote psychic, because, again, that's like Dionne Warwick, scammer 800 numbers, back in those days. So I definitely didn't want to be considered anything like that. So, I mean, again, it was kind of a different time, but, I was going through all these different things all kind of at the same time. So when I came, back from the near-death experience and I started seeing all this stuff, people started getting scared. It started like, okay, well, maybe that's not what they meant. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to tell people. So I stopped. And then, I started talking to, people, and they said, well, maybe, Christina, you're supposed to realize you can't change any of this. And you are supposed to put it out, because if it helps even one person survive something, wouldn't it be worth it? And when I looked at it that way, it changed my perspective. And I realized that it's not my job to change the world. It's not my job to save anybody. It's not my job to convince anybody of anything. It's merely to put the information out. And it will get to the people that it's supposed to get to.
And that's so
And that's
true.
all I can do.
Yeah, and I hate to cut you off, but we got to go to our next break.
Yeah.
So, you guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and listen closely. Spaced Out Radio continues through the weekend. From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Weekend with Tessa N Thomas.
Hey guys, welcome back. So great to have you listening tonight. Tonight we're joined by Christina George, and man, she's so many things. She's a paranormal investigator. She's started her own group. She's a psychic medium. She is a cryptozoologist. She also speaks at events and universities and conferences and such. And it's so awesome to have her here and hear her stories. Welcome back, Christina.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So we've been talking about your paranormal experiences. Are there more that you experienced after the ones we've spoken about?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, one of the other big experience over my years that has really, really stuck out was many years ago. Well, I don't know, probably about 4 years ago. My team and I were out in Redding, California, and we were going and interviewing a supposed abductee and a target. He was targeted. He was in the military, things like that. So he was having a whole bunch of paranormal stuff going on. So we went, and it was the craziest experience, and just all this stuff was happening. And so we wrap up, and we have to drive 4.5 hours back home. And we get home, and it's time for me to go and get back to my house and get back to my life. So I get back, and my best friend of over 25 years and I were roommates, and we lived in this cul-de-sac. So there was only one way in and one way out. It was like a little subdivision of townhouses. But there was only one way into the subdivision and one way out. It was like a big circle. And then off of the big circle, there was like this one little street that had 3 condos on it, and mine was at the very end of the dead end, and it backed up to a green belt. So we were out in the middle, kind of nowhere. My roommate was like very antisocial, and he hated, anybody coming announced to our house, and hated solicitors and stuff like that. So I get home, and I'm just trying to tell him, it's been a crazy investigation. So we had to go to the store so I could get stuff for dinner. So we headed off to the store, and when we drove back, we were driving in, down to the dead end into our place so we could pull into the garage, and we saw 3 people standing there. And it was a Caucasian lady, and she had like blondish brown curly long hair, and it was all kind of unkept, and she had this dress on that was all wrinkled, and then she had a little girl that was African American. And the one thing I noticed is her skin was very, very dry and pale, almost looked like I looked at her, and her hair was as well unkept. She had shorts and a shirt that didn't match. They were all wrinkled. And I thought, wow. And then I look at the little boy. And the little boy, his skin was white as milk. And he had this blonde hair and these almost piercing blue eyes. Had like this little bowl cut. And when we pull up and we see him, the first thing that my roommate does is he looks at me and he says, "Well, who's that?" And I look at him like, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Not anybody I know. So he pulls up, and they're just standing there looking at us. And he pulls up, and he opens the garage door, and he just pulls into the driveway. And he gets out of the car, and he's like, "Oh, I'll handle this." And so he gets out. Now, mind you, like, he's an professional baseball player. He's like 6'4", muscular. So he goes walking over there, and he just kind of like walks over there really fast, and you see him stand there, and he crosses his arms, and he's talking to the woman, and I can't hear what they're saying because the windows are rolled up, but I can see that he's talking. And then a few minutes later, all of a sudden, he just put his hands to his side. He turned back, and just like this blank stare on his face, he walks back to the car, opens the door, gets in the car, drives, pulls into the garage, puts the garage door down, gets out of the car, and just like starts to like go into the house. And I'm like, well, who was it? What did they want? And in this just very strange voice, he said, "Don't worry. They're just looking for for lost feral kittens." And he gets out of the car and he walks into the house and shuts the door behind him. And he leaves me in the car in the dark, like just sitting there, like I'm trying to figure out, just process what just happened. So I grab the groceries and I walk in the house and I hear the bedroom door downstairs. We lived in a tri-story house. He goes down into his bedroom and I hear his door close. And I go upstairs and I go up into the kitchen and put everything away. And it really kept bothering me because it was just something, I guess, about him saying, not only his demeanor and the way he was acting, but the fact that he said that they were looking for lost feral kittens. And I kept thinking, like, we don't have lost feral kittens. And why would they even be looking around them? Like, I knew everybody that lived in the subdivision, so I'm like, they're not even from here. And I thought maybe they were homeless. And I thought that, or that she was a foster care mother I wasn't really sure, but the way they looked and so unkempt, I thought, well, maybe that was it. But I remember looking at him, and again, the woman and this little girl had brown eyes. The little boy, very white skin. I thought maybe he was albino and that maybe he was the little girl's, brother. And I recognized the blue eyes because it was a different color. Blue was very, very bright, striking blue. And so I'm in the house and just curiosity, it just really kept bugging me. So I decided that I needed to actually walk down and look out and see where these people were and if they were actually still on my property. So I had these, most people have like little mini blinds and like you can like peek out them real easy. Not my house. I had these big plantation shutters. So I'm trying to look out and, you got to like really take them down. So it's like got a big gap. So I look out and I look to see on my front grass, if they were there anymore, and I don't see them. So I kind of look around the property and I have this part of the yard that looked down a little side hill on the green belt. And I saw the three of them standing right there on the grass on my property. And they were standing in a line. The lady was in the middle and the two children were on the side and they were holding hands. And it was really weird because I got this really weird feeling that came over me. And as I looked over at them, it was like they almost like telepathically knew that I was looking. And all three of them in sync at the very same time turned their bodies from the waist, then the shoulders, then their head, and turned their bodies where they were all looking dead at me. Now, when I looked at them, the one thing that I noticed immediately was all I could see were these big black eyes. And more so on the little boy that had the piercing blue eyes. They are now completely black. You cannot see any kind of white or anything.
Yeah.
And I got a fear that went through me that I had never experienced ever.
It kind of shocks your soul, right? You're like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just weird because I'd never experienced anything like that. I literally jumped back and it was weird because I had a little foyer that when you first walked in and it like had my stairway that went upstairs and then the other one that went downstairs. And like the first time I like jumped back and I hit the wall and I almost fell down the stairs and it scared me so bad. Like I'm standing in this little square foyer and I'm walking in circles talking to myself and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just see? What is going on? Like, I'm just thinking like, am I crazy? Did I just been investigating too long? What is going on? And so immediately my brain kicks in and I'm like, oh my God, I need a witness. Because all good investigators know if anything happens, you need somebody to, witness it and corroborate it so they don't think you're crazy. So right away, I'm going to go get my roommate. So I run down the stairs and I run to his door and I hear the television on and I hear the water running and it sounds like it's like the shower. And I'm thinking, what the heck is he doing in the shower right now, right? So I bang on the door and I'm calling his name. Nothing. I stand there, keep doing it. Now I'm like freaked out. So now I need to like run back upstairs because I got to figure out where these people are and like what's going on. So I run back upstairs and I try to peek out the shutters again, and I look and they're not in the spot they were at. So I like look around to the left, and now they're back to the original spot on my grass where they were at by the side of our house by the driveway, and they're standing now in a circle, and they're holding hands, and I'm noticing that they're swaying back and forth. And back and forth, and I can see their mouth moving, and so it appears that they're like whatever they're saying in sync. And all of a sudden, again, just as if they telepathically knew I was looking at them, they all turn and they look at me again. And once again, it scares me. I jump back. I hit the closet door, and like now again, I'm super freaked. So I'm thinking, what in the world are they saying? What are they doing? So I run downstairs again, try to get my roommate. Repeat the same steps. I'm pounding on the door. Nobody comes. So I run back up the stairs again. Now, replaying this in my mind and talking about it after, it's like a comedy skit. But during the time it was happening, it was really, really scary. And I'm running around in circles, walking, holding my head, talking to myself, saying, oh my God, what in the world's going on? And then I'm literally talking to myself saying, Christina, what in the world is wrong with you? Why are you so scared? Like, this is what you do for a living. Like, pull yourself together, get out there and figure out, what's going on. So with that, I give myself this little pep talk. I grab the handle of my door, I yank it open, and I walk out onto my deck on the side of my house. And I look over and I say, hey, what are you guys doing over there? And just at the moment I say that, they all three drop their hands. They turn and look at me. The woman says, nothing, we're done. And the three of them walk off. And it was weird because, I was frozen. I couldn't even, move. My brain was, trying to catch up of what was going on. And all of a sudden I thought, that you're done? What do you mean you're done? You're done with what? Mm-hmm. So I run up the side of my house to where the end of the house is where the driveway is. And I look, and it literally not even a minute had passed. So I run up the side of the house. I look around the corner, and there's nobody. No sign of any of three of them. So I'm like, okay, now all of a sudden I'm not scared anymore. Now I have to find out what's going on and what they just did. So I run back into the house to grab my car keys. I grab my car keys, and just as I'm grabbing my car keys and on my way back out, my roommate is coming up the stairs. And I literally grab him. I start yelling and screaming at him, what was he doing and why was he there? And he said I'm Italian, obviously. I talk really fast and I can talk a lot. And he said I was talking so fast he couldn't even understand what I was telling him. So I said, never mind, just come on. And I just grabbed him and I pulled him out, and we jump in my car, and I jump in the car and I start to go. Now, remember, I told you that this is just like a big circle complex. So there's only one way in and one way out, and the condos line the circle. So I'm looking, and I'm like, I'm going to definitely catch them before they get to the front. They can't walk that far that quick. I jump, and they're not at the front. They're not around. I go all the way around. I actually stopped and talked to neighbors that were out mowing their lawns and doing barbecues. Nobody saw these people. Nobody. So I come back to the house, and I'm freaked out. I'm yelling at my roommate, where in the world? Why were you taking a shower? And he's like, I wasn't. I was watching the game. And I was like, no, you weren't. I was pounding on the door. He's like, Christina, I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell them to leave? Why would you have a problem with somebody telling you there were lost feral kittens? And he was just he didn't remember any of this. It was like I was talking in Chinese or something. And he's like, you need to go rest. And so now I'm just kind of I'm thinking I'm crazy. And all of a sudden, one of my team members calls. And they say to me, oh my God, Christina, you're not going to believe, I just had the weirdest thing happen to me, right? And I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, I might believe it. What happened? And so they were each telling me, and I ended up getting 3 or 4 calls from different team members. Now, they all had something strange happen when they went home, something paranormal, but nothing like mine. So when I tell them what happens to me, like the first thing they start telling me is, oh my God, that sounds like black-eyed kids. You know, did you have a black-eyed kid experience? And I said, absolutely not. And they said, what do you mean? They had black eyes. And I said, well, look, you know, I knew about black-eyed kids. I knew David Weatherly. I interviewed him about black-eyed kids. So I knew about them. And I knew that the phenomena, they would come up to your car or your car door and ask for a ride, or maybe knock on your door, and they would usually have hoodies on and these black eyes and all this kind of stuff. And none of that fit the scenario, right? Like, and they were like these little pale kids. This one was like an adult woman, an African-American kid, and this little white child that didn't look white either. He just looked pale white. So I had no idea, you know, I'm like, it doesn't fit the scenario, can't be. And they're like, you know, I really think that it is. So I actually reached out to one of my friends who at the time was good friends with David before I became really good friends with him. And I called this third party and I said, do me a favor. Like, I just had this really weird thing happen to me. Could you do me a favor and call David and tell him, you know, repeat this story and see what he thinks about it. See if he thinks it's black-eyed kids. And my friend said, oh, that's really weird. Okay, you know, and kind of chuckled. And he said, I'll call. So I didn't hear anything. And eventually I called him back and I said, well, did you talk to him? And he said, yeah, well, I did. You know, yeah, I was right. He didn't think it was black-eyed kids because, again, just like you said, it doesn't fit into any of the reportings and things like that. So I said, okay, fine. So at that point, I then had a meeting with my team and I swore them to secrecy that we were never going to discuss this or reveal it to the public. And they all thought that I needed to go and put it out online. And I said, absolutely not. People already think I'm crazy. They will definitely think it if I put this out. So a year goes by, never talk about it again. I go to one of the local MUFON meetings here in our town that one of my friends runs. And I walked in, hadn't been to one for months. I decided to walk in. And to my surprise, the guest speaker that weekend or that day was David Weatherly. So I walk in and immediately when he sees me, he's like, oh my God, Christina, how you been? You know, he's like, good to see you. He's like, hey, I need to talk to you at, you know, either after this or at intermission. So I said, okay. And so he pulled me aside and he said, how come you never got back to me about your encounter? And I said, well, you know, so-and-so told me he talked to you. And he said that, you know, it absolutely wasn't. So I just left it at that. And he said, oh, absolutely not. He said, in fact, I really want to sit down and talk to you. I want you to tell me it all over again. And after I told him, his book, The Black-Eyed Children, was just about to be released. I mean, it was at the publishers, I think, being printed. And he decided that he wanted to include my story in his book. So it came out there. I got a lot of attention for that. And then I ended up being contacted by Nick Redfern. And he was doing research on black-eyed children, men in black, women in black, and black-eyed women. And through all his research, he found that I was the only person who was a paranormal investigator or a psychic or any of those things that were in the field that experienced a black-eyed kid encounter or a black-eyed woman, because now all these years later there were a lot more reportings of these things and there were variances of it. They were finding that there were women, there were kids, there was people, they would see the eyes change, all these different things. So I will tell you that probably was one of my scariest experiences. But I mean, I guess it seems funny that would be the scariest, but it enacted a reaction to me that I have never experienced in my life. I've never experienced that type of fear, and I don't even know what in the world it was that I was afraid of, because it wasn't anything they were doing or really anything that they were saying. It was the energy that they were giving me when they were looking at me. I mean, it was just literally put fear through me, paralyzing fear.
Yeah, and these things are kind of like a different sort of entity. And when you hear about demons and such, which you were saying you're not sure if they exist, but, I believe there's Satan and there's God and there's demons and there's angels. There's so many different things out there that I'm never surprised when I come across something new. I've never encountered black-eyed children or black-eyed women, but I've heard stories, and like you were saying, according to different people, when they first appear, they seem somewhat normal. A lot of times they look kind of like, their eyes are drawn in, like they have bags under their eyes, or their cheeks are sucked in or whatnot. And then when they look a second or third time, that's when their eyes become black and you realize what exactly you're dealing with.
Right. And it's weird because over the years, when people have interviewed me about it, they always ask me, well, do you think, because there's a lot of theories on what black-eyed children are, are they demonic, possessed children? Are they alien? What are they? And so, again, there's a lot of theories of what they are. Me personally, I think it's something interdimensional, to be absolutely honest. The fact that they appeared, then they disappeared. And something else that was interesting, because David had asked me during the interview, did you ever go and do any readings over where, with the equipment over where they were standing? And as an investigator, again, human nature should have told me that would have been the first thing I would have wanted to do, is go and try to gain any evidence and do whatever research I could. And I never did. And he said, I think you should. And I said, David, it's been a year. Like literally, it had literally been a year. And I said, I doubt there would be any energy left if they were ever there. And he said, well, you don't know till you try. And to my surprise, we had the EMF meters, and it was just like off the chart. Just in that one area that they were in a circle at, and then just in the one area where they were standing on the ledge of the green belt. So it was definitely interesting. I'll tell you. I don't ever want to experience it again. I know that much.
Yeah, for sure. And you also are into cryptozoology and ufology. Have you seen UFOs, or did you just have experiences as far as being abducted? What exactly is your experience with aliens and UFOs?
So, as well as my psychic abilities as a child, I've also saw UFOs pretty much as long as I can remember. Now, when I was young, I didn't realize they were UFOs until I got older. And again, they never really scared me. I was always somebody that, loved to look at the sky, the clouds, very obsessed with space. And I loved to lay in the backyard at night on the grass and look at the sky and watch the stars. And I moved a lot as a child. I had a very traumatic childhood. I moved a lot. In fact, probably at least once, sometimes twice a year. I went to every elementary school that we had in our town. I went to all three of the junior highs, and I went to both high schools in our town. That's how much we moved. And I would always see a craft over the house that we moved to the night that we moved in. I would only see it that one night. I would never see it again till the next time I moved. And again, as a child, I don't really know what I thought it was. I just thought it was cool, and it was kind of like I considered them maybe my friends, and they were like watching out for me, and maybe they were my angels, and they watch out, and that's how they let me know that they were, there for me. I didn't know, but I had all kinds of, thoughts of what maybe it could, possibly be. But I would tell you that I never would have thought that I would ever say that I was an abductee in any way, shape, or form. It was about the paranormal that I was focused on, maybe because that's what was so prevalent in my life. And it wasn't until a couple years ago it all changed. I told you that the my precog dreams started to change. And it was really weird. And people ask me, well, how do you know that it wasn't just a dream? How do you know it was a precog dream? And I always knew the difference, because whenever I would have these precog dreams, I would go to sleep and I would wake up and I would be in this circular room. And there was a pedestal in the middle of the room, and there was like a railing. And when I would show up in this room, there would be almost, it's like a television screen, but it's more like a holographic type of screen, and it would be on. And it was, now looking back, it's very strange, but I never questioned before. But whenever I would be in that room, I would just automatically walk up to the television or up to the screen, and I would just watch whatever it was that it was showing me. And it would show me a series of different natural disasters that were going to happen. And again, it always involved death and things like that. So they were never really great, but I experienced them. And again, when people ask me, who do you think gives you this information? I'd say, I guess spirit guides. I didn't know. A couple years ago, last year, things started, a couple years ago, the precog dreams started getting really, really going. I mean, I was literally having them sometimes every single day for weeks, and it was just one thing after another, after another, after another. And as things changed, all of a sudden, the whole environment up there started to change. And so I go in there, and this one time I go in there, and the screen is not on this time. And so behind where this screen normally would be, I could see that there were 2 circular windows. And nosy me, I decide, okay, I guess it was like the first time it made me realize there's windows. Maybe I should check to see where I'm at. Because again, I had always just walk up to that screen, and once the screen was done showing me the video, I would wake up and I'd be in my bed. So that just always happened. I never stuck around or looked around or anything. And this time I go to the window, and when I look out the window, the first thing that I realize is that I'm seeing a lot of blackness and stars. And I still had a lot of critical thinking. So I look straight out this window out further, and what I see is this looks like a big ball of fire. And right away I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, something is so wrong here. All right. First of all, why would I be seeing space of all places? Second of all, it just validates that it's space, because I'm seeing what looks like the sun. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, how in the world can we even be this close to the sun? Because they teach you that anything that gets close to it would be too hot, it would melt. And obviously it wasn't melting. And all of a sudden, this big burp of energy, which I assume was a solar flare, I see burst out, and I look to the right, and I can see what seems to be Earth. But as soon as it does this solar flare, the windows closed in upon themselves, literally just They were gone, it was just smooth metal again. And I grew up being a big fan of Star Trek. And I used to tell people as a little kid, this is not make-believe. Okay, there you go. This is not make-believe. I don't care what you say. They really have this stuff. And if you don't believe me, just wait and see. And so if you remember, right, in Star Trek, when they wanted to go in and out of different rooms, they would put their hand up, on an area, and it would open the doors. So crazy me, I'm thinking, I'm sitting there in this room, and I'm thinking, okay, now, how do you get out? I'm not going back. What do I do? Now I'm realizing I'm in space, so this now triggers me that I must be on some kind of craft. This is my worst nightmare. This is worse than anything ever attacking me in the paranormal, because I have been, done interviews with countless abductees, and the stories that they've told have just been bone-chilling. And people used to tell me all the time, I think you're an abductee, Christina. And I'm like, no, I just cover it, And so now all this is kind of hitting me, and I'm like, wow, what is going on? So I go up to the wall again, it was like it was calm. And I put my hand up on this place on the wall, and to my surprise, 2 doors open. And you wouldn't have been able to see that there are doors. They just slide open. And I look out, and I look to the right, I look to the left, and you can see 2 long hallways and a long walkway that just has like little LED lights on the ground, on the floor, on both sides of the walkway. It illuminated the hallway, but not like enough, like with a light bulb or anything. They're just small LEDs. And at that point, I got really scared, and I remember, like, I went back in, and the doors closed, and the next thing I know, I woke up, and I was in my bed, and I was in sleep paralysis, and I could not move, and, like, really freaked me out. And so the next day, that day, later in the afternoon, I call one of my lead team members, and that's the head of my UFO division. And I tell him what goes on, and he's like, "Oh, wow. Okay. Now are you a believer?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I believe. I think I've absolutely lost it. I think that I need to be committed. There's something wrong here." And he just kept, encouraging me. No, I needed to find out. And I said, absolutely not. Now, I did have somebody on my team at the time who now is one of the leading regression hypnotherapists that works with a lot of abductees and contactees. And she had, for probably 2 years, had been trying to get me to let her regress me, so she could find out, because it was like a running thing that, I was just probably in denial. And I was like, nope, and I don't need regression, and anything that may or may not have happened to me, if I can't remember, there's probably a darn good reason I don't. I don't need to know that information. So I had this experience, and then a couple days later, I wasn't having them, and then I have another one. Now, this time I show up in this room. I can see that it is completely, the room's there, and the TV is on. And I walk up to this on the platform, and I look, but this time, to my surprise, there's nothing that is anything to do with natural disasters. What is showing on this screen is literally my life, but not anything positive.
That's so weird.
Any and every traumatic experience I had gone through in my life was being shown to me on this screen. But not only was I seeing it, it was also, I was feeling it all over again. Like, all the emotions, all of the pain, all of everything was like there. I mean, it was so overwhelming that I literally lost it. I literally dropped to my knees, and I just started crying. And I just said, I don't know what you want from me. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're giving me this information. And I surely don't know why you're doing this to me. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. But, I can't figure this out. So at that point, the screen goes off. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm sobbing, on my knees. And eventually, I'm waiting to, wake up in my bed, and it doesn't happen again. And now I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So this time, I decide, okay, I'm going to see if the door will open again. So this time, I decide I'm going to be nosy. I need to get answers. And maybe that's why they say curiosity kills the cat, But this is my life. So I open the door. Yes, it opens. I can look down the hallways. I can see everything the same. I decide, well, which way should I go, left or right? Since I'm left-handed, left is always right for me. So I decide I'm going to go to the left. So I just go out, and I just start walking down this hallway. And I eventually get to it where it's ending, and it curves around. So I curve around, and when I curve around, I'm faced with this big security door, and it's got like this pad that looked like it had some kind of scanner. I don't know if it would be for your hand, your eye, I don't know what it was, but it definitely looked like like a laboratory building, to get in. And so immediately I'm thinking, okay, space, some kind of craft, and a laboratory. None of this is good. Why in the world am I even here? I need to get back. So I turn to the right again, and as I turn to the right again to get ready to go back and go down the hallway, I look, and there's a big glass wall. And you can see through it, and when you see through it, you can see all of these little small cubicles. And they were stacked on top of each other, and they were long lines. And as I'm looking at them, you could see different gestations. They were definitely embryos, and they were in different gestational stages. And the ones that were lower, were smaller. The ones that were higher were bigger. You could definitely tell that they looked basically what, they would say an alien, human hybrid child or embryo would look like. So now you've put this on top of it, and doing all these interviews all these years, the one thing that when it comes to these hybrid babies or these, babies, is usually it's something that they'll claim that the aliens and the military are involved in. So now my fear is just heightened out of control. Like, I need to get back to this room. To be absolutely honest, I don't even know how I thought I was going to get back into the room, because although I knew how to get out of it, I did not consciously know how to get back in. So I go to turn around the corner and run down the walkway, and I run into two men, dead into them. I look at them. They both have full military gear on, black, look like black, like if you're going to be in SWAT or, or something like that. It had visors and everything. And they literally grabbed me. Next thing I know, I'm looking, and I'm trying to look at if there's any patches or anything on the uniform so I can know what they're from. And before I know it, they put something to my arm. Next thing I know, I'm out. When I wake up, I'm literally on a platform in some kind of a room, like on an examining room. But all the stories I was told is that aliens could paralyze you. And I couldn't move, but as I look down, I can see I'm literally strapped to a table. And so I'm panicked. I don't know where I'm at, don't know what's going on, don't know what's about to happen. All I can do is keep thinking of all the interviews I've done with people who've been abducted, and none of it is anything good that I should have been thinking about right then. And about that time, I had some guys that came in that almost looked like scientists or doctors. They had all white, they had hats on their head, masks on their face, and walking in with them were some what looked like gray aliens, but they didn't look tiny. They actually looked, bigger. And one actually walked straight up to me and like telepathically was trying to get me to tell me it was okay and I needed to calm down. And all this did was just throw my anxiety out of control. And kind of the funny twist to this is, I grew up in the Catholic faith, but I got away from really religion, but, I'm very spiritual and I do believe in God and all of that. But I would always say, like, do I believe in God? Yes. Do I believe that he's some white guy floating with a white beard looking like Santa Claus floating around on the clouds? Yeah, probably not so much, right? And I always made a big running joke of that on my show. And now in this moment, I am so petrified that my human nature is that when you're really scared, what do? Is you pray, right? So I just start praying. I am saying every Our Father, Hail Mary, Act of Contrition, you name it, I'm saying it. And then at the end of it, I start to see that one of the scientists, he leaves. And when he comes back in the room, he's got a tray with a cloth over the top. And what looks like a sterile tray. And again, anybody who's in the medical field, a sterile tray is always going to probably not be something fun that you're going to go through. So I close my eyes and I look and I see that he's walking towards me. And he comes to the right side of me, puts the thing down on a little table. And all of a sudden I look and he's getting something off the table and I close my eyes as tight as I can, and I start praying, Dear Lord, if you really exist and you really there and you listen to people when they need you, I need you more than anything. And I so apologize, and I hope you forgive me for all the things I said. If you really are an old white guy with a white beard that sits on the clouds and lets people into heaven, and I've disrespected you, I am so, so sorry. But if you're real, you got to help me. And as I'm doing that, the next thing I know, I felt literally something crawl into my ear, and like almost if it was like a spider. And horrible pain in my head. And then I woke up in my bed again. And I will tell you that I was in full sleep paralysis. My jaw was locked open as if I was screaming. It looked like something right out of like, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I was like that literally for an hour. And all that I could do was look at the light, look at the clock that was by me, and watch the time go by and think about everything that happened. And also I had my daughter and my infant grandson at the time, where I think he was maybe, I guess by that time he was probably 2.5, 3. And every morning he would come to see me in the morning. And all I could think of is, oh my God, if my grandson and my daughter walk in, like they're going to think I'm dead or something bad happened. Like, so right. I was doing my best to try to like move my fingers or move something to break the paralysis. So I finally did. And the same experience that I told you about being very suicidal and everything happened again. And I literally it was so strong and so bad that I literally left my house. I got in my car. I started just driving randomly. I drove up into the mountains and decided that I was going to drive my car off of the cliff. And I literally floored the car, and I closed my eyes and started praying, and next thing I know, I slammed on the brakes, or something caused me to slam on the brakes, and the car slid and stopped right before the guardrail. And I freaked out. I ended up calling my team member. I was just a mess. I literally called my friend who was the regression hypnotherapist, and I said, I need to come see you ASAP. She said, what happened? I explained everything, and she said, come see me first thing tomorrow. I was so freaked out. I didn't want to do it. Again, it was just such a situation that just so twists your mind when you're experiencing it. So I did end up going and having the regression. I was under for about 3 hours, and we don't have enough time to get into that, but I'll tell you there was a lot of information that was revealed during that. She videotaped it, and it was interesting when I was explaining it to her beforehand. When I walked into her office, she pulled a sketch pad out, and she said, the room that you go into when you have your precog dreams, does it happen to look like this? And it was as if she had sketched exactly what I said. And I said, yeah, but how did you know? And she said, interestingly enough, I have another client who has precog dreams as well and is an abductee. And it told me about a similar room. So it's very interesting, very freaky. But again, I've always had a theory that all of these different fields in the paranormal, ufology, cryptozoology, were all interconnected. There were a lot more connections than people wanted to believe. And through my research of my own personal life and experiences and things that I have found out over time, I believe that even more so. And through my research, it's, pretty much that's what it has shown. A lot of people who report paranormal activity will, say that they've seen a UFO at some point. A lot of people who are abductees or contactees have paranormal activity that happens with them as well. So it's definitely interesting. I'm still learning and still trying to figure things out and, help people along the way with what I find out.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like I was saying earlier, my mom was my spiritual side, and that's what I focused on for the longest time. And then my aunt and uncle took us in and basically adopted us, and I would tell stories to my cousin, and she'd run and tell her mom, and she's like, quit telling my daughter that. This is all make-believe, yada, yada, yada. And it did make me feel kind of crazy. But on the other hand, my dad was the side of me that believed in UFOs and aliens and things like that. He had had a couple paranormal experiences after being with my mom, but otherwise not. And one time we're driving down the highway and we see these 3 lights approaching and all the cars are pulling over on the side of the highway and everybody thinks, oh, it's a UFO. And then all of a sudden it's just these helicopters approaching. I didn't have an experience with UFOs until 2012. First when I was coming back from the motorcycle rally with my 2 daughters and I'm pregnant with my son. And it's funny, it all started when my son came about, even in my womb. And my daughter's like, what is that? What is that? It's following us. And it's kind of like, you know, when you're a kid and you're looking out the window and you see the moon following you or having a race with you or whatnot. So I'm like, I don't know. I can't see because I'm driving, but I'll look here in a minute. And we came to the T, which leads to my house from the Rainbow Road. And I get out of my Gran Torino and I look up in the sky and I see this ball of fire. And it looks small at the height that it was at. But I was like, wow, what is that? And my daughter, Nova, she's not only able to see things, but sense what they're feeling. And she's like, Mom, please just get in the car, let's go home. Can you please just take me home? So I did. I didn't see another UFO until after my son was born. And I'm sitting there holding him and thinking about Dylan Redwine and looking out into the cold winter field, you know, snow covered, and the moon is shining on it really bright. And all of a sudden I see this orb of fire, and it's contained within this little kind of like snow globe orb, which is not really little. It's like 3 or 4 feet in circumference, 3 or 4 feet off the ground. But the fire is like liquid fire and contained within this ball and rolling clockwise. And I put my son down, I run to the door, I open the door, and I step 1 foot out. And as soon as I did that, I step back in, close the door, and I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I can't be abducted or taken away right now. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I have 4 kids at this point, or 3 kids at this point, depending upon me. And so I try to get my phone to work so I can get pictures. It's not working. And I'm like, hey, you guys come over here. You got to see this. If I can't get pictures, I at least need witnesses. And my 2 daughters and my husband come over, and my 2 daughters see the same thing as I, a ball filled with liquid fire. My husband sees an orb with, like a bat, the mammal, a bat, flapping its wings really slowly, like so slow to the point it shouldn't be flying, but it's contained within this little circular mass. And then it just continues on until it's behind the 150-year-old blue spruces and we can't see it anymore. And I've also gotten pictures of different craft in the air, not intentionally, but taking pictures of the moon because there was this odd electric blue color coming from it. And it was so beautiful and amazing. And since my mom died, I've been obsessed with the sky and looking up and thinking my mom painted that sunset for me or that sunrise, being that I can't sleep. I have this, sleep issue. But I'm wondering, had I gone out to investigate, would it have taken me? And then my daughter, my youngest, she's 3 years old. She's had dreams, and she's told me about them while I'm at work and we're on the phone. And she's like, Mom, I had this dream last night, and there was this UFO in the backyard, and it was behind the trees, and I could see the lights coming through, and they took us onto the ship, and then my brother jumped off, and then they were trying to get him back. And I was like, brother, come back. It's okay. It's okay. And then she had another one where they were chasing them around the yard. She didn't feel afraid of them, but she knew something was happening. So it makes me wonder, have they come back and now they're taking my 2 youngest kids? And, I want to give them the massage like I used to when they were little babies and see if I can feel any hard points underneath their skin or whatnot. Have they been chipped? What's going on? Is this an actual dream? It was so vivid as far as the way she explained it. It seemed real to me. And I'm wondering if that's really happening.
Well, it definitely could be. I mean, I know that I questioned my sanity for a little while after, all that happened. But strangely enough, a couple days after that whole scenario, because it was the next day that I saw my friend for the regression, and that following day, I was at home, and my daughter needed me to help her do something with my grandson. So I was walking up the stairs, and she was walking behind me, and the shirt I had, I guess it was kind of up in the back, and she said, "Oh my God, what happened, Mom? And what happened to your back?" And I said, "I don't know. Why? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "It's all bruised." And I said, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Go look at it." So I get upstairs and I look in the long mirror I have, and I can see like the whole back from like where like my bra strap is at to right like where my waist is, like where my pants would be. The whole back area from the left to the right was black and blue. It was weird. It was like, it looked like all these veins, but it was like all black and blue, and it was weird. And over the next few days, it changed color. So it was like just like a regular bruise. It was like purple, and then it was like a greenish color, and then it was like this weird yellow color. And all of a sudden, I started getting all these blisters all over my back. And I mean, it was crazy. I mean, they were everywhere, and they would look like little water blisters, and then they would burst, and then they would bleed. It was the craziest thing I'd seen. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor, they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they sent me to a specialist, and then the specialist, they had all these different things that they thought it might be, but it wasn't. And they thought maybe it was shingles because I'd had chickenpox as a kid, and they tested and it wasn't that either, but it was similar. And I end up having this doctor that looks at it and it says, "It looks like it's a radiation burn." Now, do you know that, this was a few years ago. I still to this day have the scar on my back. It's all like a brown all over my back, splotches, as a reminder all the time, and that this happened. And there's no explanation for these burns other than for the fact that this happened right after this experience.
Yeah, that is so strange. And being that you were in contact with this vehicle, a lot of times I've heard the aliens telling them, walk in a straight line, don't touch anything, because if you do, you get that radiation burn on you. So I'm wondering if you accidentally fell against it or touched some portion of it to where you did get that radiation within you, and like you're saying, you still have the scar that is so weird and at the same time amazing.
I mean, it looks like a burn scar, and again, it's just right there in the middle of my back from the left to the right. I posted pictures of it during the time it was happening on social media to try to get some ideas if anybody had any thoughts or anything when I was going through this. But eventually after it healed, the doctor told me that it sounded like it was more of a radiation burn and a scar. And so he was asking me, had I been around anything that had radiation? And I said, no. But who knows? I mean, that's the only thing that happened before it, and never happened before, and hasn't, happened since. But ever since I had that situation, I also get these really, really high pitch squeal in that ear every once in a while. It's very strange, very, very strange.
Yeah, I get that. I even had that last night where it's like, I can often hear electrical things in my house, the high-pitched squeal you get off of it, but this was so loud and intense. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Makes me wonder about my heart health and stuff. Like, do I have issues with my heart? But we're actually at the end of the show, believe it or not. How can our listeners find you?
Well, I'm pretty much on all of the social media platforms. I'm mostly on Facebook, so they can go to Facebook and look up Paranormal Connections radio show. You can also look for my page. The only thing is that I'm at the max, so you could only follow the page. But everything that I do goes on to the Paranormal Connection page. You can also, if you have questions, need help, need advice, any of that, you can email me. I'm at paranormalconnections@gmail.com. And again, you can watch my show Paranormal Connections every Monday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Top Secret News radio show on Wednesday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being my guest tonight. It was so wonderful having you on the show this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much to everyone in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else in the universe you're listening tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and it was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend on spacedoutradio.com. Until next time, nighty-night, and love and light to all my space cases out there. You guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend and rest of your week. Please don't work too hard and have much fun. And I'll see you back here next weekend.
Through the sand, you'll win your hand and be your man.
Don't forget, we're all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we own the night. If you guys would like to join us for the Skype after party, the number is 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. You guys take care of my U's, and I'll see you back here next weekend.